Welcome back to the Carbon Trust Route to Net Zero Europe event, and this is our closing session. I hope you've had a fantastic day so far with us. First, let's hear from Jan Notre Dame from CSR Europe, who's going to tell us more about renewed ambition, mobilization, leadership, and collective action within the European Business Network. In particular, their work on a European barometer for sustainable industry and sector-level activity, including how CEOs from over 5,000 enterprises have committed to working together to ensure a route to net zero.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be with you on this very special event in between COP26 and Christmas, and I thank you for your invitation. Also, I would like to express my gratitude for bringing, after COP26, such a platform of distinguished stakeholders, experts, doers on your road to net zero, on our road to net zero. Your event is luckily adding to what was, I believe, more of a half glass empty than a half glass full in COP26. It is now my pleasure to contribute to your event and to indicate some additional elements to the many obstacles that you have already identified and discussed that are on the road to net zero. But also, I wanted to contribute to see how we can accelerate the speed on that road. And I will mainly do this on the basis of the first European barometer on sustainable industry, which was unveiled just a few weeks ago by 5,000 attendees of the European SDG Summit, where CEOs and leaders from civil society and a number of European commissioners and the Vice President of the Commission, Frans Timmermans, looked at the results of the barometer and discussed some steps ahead, some practical measures also to be taken on the Green Deal. This first European barometer on sustainable industry was developed by CSR Europe together with Moody's Vigeo Eiris. And the overall observation that you can see, and that will not come as a surprise to you, is that from the 5,000 enterprises across Europe and from 40 different industry sectors, looking at these 5,000 companies, we see that their performance on environment, on social, and on governance is growing over the last 5 years very, very slowly. And in the meantime, what is not moving slowly, but what is rising very rapidly is the number of controversies related to climate, of course, but also to biodiversity and also to social. So there is an increase of, and we see it every day, public campaigns and protests. The whistleblowers are still whistling very loudly. Shareholder activism is also on the rise. And we see more and more companies being brought to courts, which means that there is a new stakeholder out there, which is the judge, and which is also going to play a role to accelerate the pace of how companies can meet the targets that they set to themselves and their transformation. The barometer is giving also some answers to the why of this situation. And there are mainly three key reasons. We see for most of the industry sectors, almost all of them, there is still a gulf, a very large fragmentation between the champions on one side and the laggards, especially in the sectors of specialized retail, the automotives, energy, chemicals, luxury goods and cosmetics, and I can continue the list. So there is a fundamental problem. We cannot move on the climate agenda, on this route to net zero, only with the peloton de tête, with the champions. And that is a key element that I will touch on later in terms of possible solutions for us and you to invest in. Another explanation is that when we interview industry federations in Europe, we see that only 40% are setting time-bound targets when developing sustainability strategies and roadmaps. So in between the global targets being set in Copenhagen, in the COP26, according to the Paris agreements, and the future ones that we will have on biodiversity, and the targets that are being set in the Fit for 55 in Europe, and the carbon neutral continent that Europe wants to be in 2050. In between these targets and the targets that are being set at company level, there is a lack of mezzo targets and objectives being set at the level of industry associations and federations. So how can you measure the impact of a sector to society if you do not have these targets? And another element is that only 30% of the industry federations and associations do offer to the member companies of these associations practical projects of collaboration. Is it sector projects or cross-sector projects? And we all know that it is through practical collaboration that you reach most impact. Now, what does it mean for Carbon Trust? What does it mean for all of us here in the meeting on the road to net zero? Well, we invite key players, leading players like you are, to engage much more with the industry sector federations and associations. This will require from all of us to mobilize the CEOs of companies that present themselves as champions on climate change and on social transformation. Not only to go to Davos, to New York, to Geneva, and to all kinds of capitals with a strong speech about how their companies are transforming themselves, but they need to spend more time in their families, the sector industries, and help to rally many, many more of their peers in the sector around a common purpose and a strong, integrated, holistic sustainability strategy. Putting also an equal ambition on climate, on environment, and on social justice. Social is a climate agenda, and climate is a social agenda. Now, working with industry federations is what we see as a major gap to be bridged. Not only we need to encourage CEOs to spend more time in rallying their peers, we also need to inspire federations to embark far more on the UN SDGs narrative that more than 197 governments have ratified a number of years ago. We believe that this narrative is extremely important because it's the agenda that is obliging you to have a cross-discipline and to link the different objectives with one another and not to have a classic silo approach of sustainability. Setting targets is another challenge for industry sectors you can help them with. Continuing, of course, research and education. Equip the thousands of enterprises, member of these sectors, with the basic awareness, with how to develop scientific-based targets, with all the tools that a number of leading companies are establishing to run more efficient functions. Is it the R&D? Is it the production? Is it the purchase? Is it the HR, etc.? And last but not least, we need to encourage, we need to become the partners of industry federations to run and to facilitate sector and cross-sector collaborative projects. Finally, we need to also not only require individual companies to report on their performance, on climate, on governance, and on social. Also, industry sectors need to come out and explain how they make progress or how they do not make progress, and where is it that they can express needs for collaboration. And based on these results, last year there was the inauguration of the European Pact for Sustainable Industry. And the raison d'etre of this pact is to offer also a zone of comfort for industry federations to have a place to learn in a peer-to-peer mode and to see where they can steal from one another a number of best practice, how they have been addressing a number of obstacles, so that they can also mutualize their efforts in providing, in empowering the hundreds and thousands of their members. And it's a pact for sustainable industry that is having a high ambition. By 2024, we want to see all industry federations having an integrated strategy on sustainability. We want to bring them out of 40 years of one single task, which was about lobbying. And when it comes to sustainability, it was often in a very conservative way. So how to help and support sector federations, industry associations, to become far more proactive with their members. And this is critical for us. Today, we have an estimation of 25,000, mainly large companies, taking the lead on sustainability. Well, only in Europe, you have 27 million enterprises, very small, medium, and large. And that is why we cannot only have a few champions on the route to net zero. We need the critical mass of enterprises. Also, we believe that an interesting way to move forward on this route to net zero is to see how players like you, like Carbon Trust, can take the ball of what will be soon a new European and probably a new international corporate covenant next to the covenant of mayors on climate and energy. So this is in the current making, and we think that you have a natural place to become a leader when this kind of initiatives will come out, especially through the corporate covenant and the covenant of mayors, to see how these two communities can come closer for more robust local climate pacts. And last but not least, we believe that it is also our common responsibility to help set European, if not international, sector alliances on due diligence. This is to widen the scope and the impact. This is very necessary in Europe, looking at the forthcoming European regulations on sustainable corporate governance and due diligence that will require from all large companies to embed environment, climate, and human rights into their supply chains. Now, if this is all limited to compliance in order for companies to manage better their risks and do no harm, that's only one part of the agenda. We need to set up much stronger sector alliances for industry sectors and their members and experts and stakeholders from all sides to see how they can identify which are the countries with most risks, what are the material issues with the most risks in terms of climate or in terms of human rights, climate being a human right today, and see where is it that we can help build these sector alliances on due diligence, so that at the end we are far more enterprises who also across their value chains can have impact on the local ecosystems to enhance the livelihoods of the millions of workers, of farmers, and of miners. So these are three levels of action and investment that we could take on board to help far more companies to embark on the route to net zero. Thank you very much for your attention, and thank you very much for all the energy that you have put in this event. Thank you for the vibes, and thank you for sharing the results with a much wider public. I think it's a big gift just before Christmas. Thank you very much, and hope to see you very soon.
Thank you, Jan. Well, we hope you've enjoyed the show today. Don't panic if you missed one of the sessions. All of the videos and resources will be made available afterwards by the team at the Carbon Trust. I'd like to thank all of our fantastic speakers, and especially you, the audience, for making this such a special event. We have a closing poll, which is perhaps the most important question of all. How are you feeling about your company's route to net zero after today? Are you worried? Maybe optimistic? Well, let us know. And now, who better than our Managing Director, Hugh Jones, to close the conference and tell us what's next on the route to net zero?
Well, thank you very much, Ralph, and hello, everybody. I will be brief because you've got almost to the end. There have been around 400 people, I think, from over 10 countries. So we're really appreciative of the time that you've spent watching and listening today. And of course, we're really appreciative to all of the speakers that we've had. Just by way of introduction, yeah, I'm Hugh Jones. It's my privilege to lead the combined Carbon Trust team, which is, as was said at the start of the day, growing rapidly with experts in Amsterdam and already working across Europe. But also importantly, the team is closely connected to the core experts who are based out of London. So what we're trying to offer is the best of our know-how for a growing set of European clients. So very quickly reflecting on the day, the scene was set at the outset by Tom Delay, our CEO, by Maria from We Mean Business, and by Katarzyna from DG Klima. And yeah, there were some sayings that stick in the mind, that sustainability is expected to bring transparency. And I think that's a theme that we heard a lot about today. I think Maria talked about needing to bring 1.5 degrees out of intensive care, which is an impactful way of putting it. And some of that was very much brought into the first panel session, which Veronica chaired. And thanks there to Andy, Alwyn, Monica, Till, and Maria Christina. The themes there were, a lot of it was around implementation, the need to go beyond target setting and actually implement the really difficult stuff, not least in the value chain. And of course, the importance for engagement, both within organizations with your employees, but also, again, along value chains. We had Pauline's session on our route to net zero standard. Now, we think this is really important. And as Pauline said, this is all about turning intent into impact. And what it's there to do is to help organizations not so much understand where they need to get to for net zero, but actually to help you get there. We then moved into the risk panel led by Gregorio, and many thanks to David and Katerina, some great insights on the need for quantification, for disclosure, and ultimately for comparability across organizations in terms of how they're assessing and demonstrating risk. And we then had a Paula's session where we had some great clips from various people, including Bethan, and then of course Rachel from Amazon, Christian from Danone, and Eric. And I mean, those again were really insightful about consumer action, transparency, again, themes that sort of recurred throughout the day. And we also heard about two really interesting surveys from both Eric, the Sustainable Brands Index, and just now from Jan, with some really interesting insights about the need really for sector level action. So again, really important. So I hope I haven't left anybody out, but we did certainly have some great speakers. Actually, just a word about Katarzyna at the beginning. I mean, really inspiring stuff around the European Climate Pact, and the fact that actually this isn't just a business and consumer thing; it's a whole societal need here to pull together to act, to contribute. And thought that speech from Katarzyna was really inspiring in that sense. So that is really it from us. Many thanks again to all of our speakers and to all of you for taking part. And remember that we, and hopefully society, is on this road to net zero. And what we now need to do is help organizations understand how to get there. And so from us, I think we're going to sign off with a video, but many thanks for taking part today. Goodbye.